We are going to talk about time management. हाँ संतोष ऐकू येत आहे.
येस ऐकू येत आहे येत आहे येत आहे ऐकू येत आहे येस ऐकू येत आहे येत आहे येत आहे ऐकू येत आहे
Hi everyone. For those who are just joining in, we shall start just after 10 a.m. There is lots of people who are going to join us, so we'll give everybody maybe 1 or 2 minutes after 10 a.m. and then we'll begin. Okay, how about now? Are you able to hear me now? Cool. Thank you. Thanks, Aaron. We'll talk in about 5 minutes, okay? Hi everyone, for those who have just joined us, good morning to all. We'll get started in a few minutes. It is exactly 10 a.m. right now. It takes a bit of time for everybody to log in and sync with the slide. So, so let's give everybody maybe another 2 or 3 minutes, and then we'll get started. Okay. I'll keep myself mute until then. Hello, RK, Abhinaya, Rakshana, Suganti, Kavya, Daya. Hi everyone. Hey Navin. Good morning to all. So I'm going to be on mute for another minute or so, and then we'll get started. Okay. All right. I believe everybody can hear me. Let me get started by welcoming you all to this third session of the 16 session series at Satkam. Um, can somebody give me an okay on the chat if they can hear me clearly? Somebody just say yes, we can hear you, or whatever can hear, so that I know that my voice is reaching you. All right, somebody singing yep, yes, we can hear you. Great. All right, so good, all of you can hear me, so I'll keep moving forward. So as you know at Satkam, our quest is to bring to you what we see as an essential skill for success in the corporate world. We fully recognize and fully understand that all of you um, want to meaningfully contribute to the corporate world, right? Yeah, be it through employment, be it through research, be it through entrepreneurship. You want to meaningfully contribute, and whichever type of job you are doing, there are several success factors to that, right? And today is such a topic where we are talking about some of these life skills or essential skills, professional skills, whichever way you look at it, which are important for success, right? And without spending more time, I'll straight jump into the topic. Just a reminder to everybody, there is since this is a live streaming, there is a delay between the slide that I'm presenting or the chat message that I'm typing and your response, and similarly, my response to your question. But keep asking me questions in the chat window. I'll try and answer them, as best or as fast as I can. And as we move forward, you will get to know, once we settle down into certain cadence on the slide presentation. So just be aware that we are on YouTube live, and there may be a slight latency or a slight delay, right? All of you, software professional, understand what is latency. All right, so let's get started. I can see that people are still joining. So let us give everybody maybe another 3 to 4 minutes, and we shall get started. Yeah. All right. So um, please recall that once you step into the professional world, there are several other things, other than being just good at programming, good at technology, good at the skill for which the company is hiring. There are several others which will guide your success in the corporate world, and this is also true, in the academia, in that while you are studying. But it becomes very important. It becomes almost like a life skill, I would say, um, as well as a highly valued professional skill, to be successful and to go up the ladder in your career chain, or be good at what you're doing, right? What is that skill? It is getting things done, right? The industry always looks out for employees, would be employees or current employees, who get things done. There could be many who are good at research, good at building prototypes, but how many are there who can get a product out into the hands of the customer, make sure that it satisfies kind of what the customer is asking, um, and also getting paid for it, right? So kind of building a product which is commercially successful is what I mean by getting things done at a very large scale. At a smaller scale, it could be a smaller project, it could be a task which is maybe a couple of days task, which needs lots of coordination, but it's a skill which is highly valued because it results in an outcome which is favorable to the company. It's not limited to some output that gets produced. So, oh, I put in 5 hours doing this, but nothing happened at the end of those 5 hours, right? I mean, were you able to deliver something out? Were you able to produce that level of value? Probably not, right? But what we are saying here is that this skill helps you get things done, helps you get to outcomes, and thus is highly valued in the industry, right? It seems very simple and common sense, but it won't be simple unless you build some good time management skills. And today we are going to look at several of such micro habits, you could call them rule sets or paradigms, which will help you get there, right? So can you type in the chat window what you see in the picture? It's I think a pretty straightforward picture. What you see, a, a, a student is is running for the bus door. The student is going to is not on the bus. The bus seems to be like a school or a college bus. And what exactly is happening here? I'll give everybody maybe a minute to write what they think of this image, and then we'll proceed. And don't, this is not complex, just think simple of what you think is going on. All right, so like some of you guessed, this this is a student and he's running to his bus stop. His bus has already left, and he is going to miss the bus. This is exactly the situation you don't want to be in, right? You want to be that person who is at the bus stop a minute before the bus arrives. You might say that, yeah, I mean, what are you telling us, right? I mean, that's so obvious that you need to be there. But trust me, it takes time and it takes consistent effort for even simple things like not missing a bus, right? And we'll talk about, how do we build that muscle. How do we build that consistency, so that each time we are a minute earlier than the bus leaves the bus stop, right? And by the way, the upside is tremendous. The upside of doing this is tremendous. It shows up in the quality of work that you do. It shows up in simple things like, your classroom session. You are the person who is 30 seconds, 1 minute early into the class before the class begins, and that is highly appreciated. um, the industry wants and rewards employees, like I said, who gets things done. And one key aspect of honing this skill is how do you manage time, right? So, as a student, every day seems to be chaotic. Multiple assignments, last minute preparations, you skip meals, you are traveling during your meal times, and you are working on your project during your travel times. You are doing these, late into the night, and kind of, getting to the deadline some way, right? So when I say some way, what I mean is not comfortably, but you struggle to get to the deadline, or sometimes, you're late. You know, what you see in the picture is what happens, right? Um, it takes a lot of, emotional toll also on students, and there is a feeling of loss of control. You, like, nothing right is happening to you. Kind of loss of control is what I'm talking about. um, no time to do anything. You are always busy. There is no time for anything, and that's the biggest complaint, right? But good time managers, you will find that, they never complain about a lack of time. They always have time for everything. And is it magic? Is it a miracle that, some people who may be doing, 10x more things, or having 10x more responsibility than a college student, can still find time to do many more things? Now let's look at, what happens if you don't pay attention to this, right? So, again, I won't dwell too much on this slide, but we have seen that, everything that is written here happens if there is lack of good time management. So suddenly you will find that, everything is urgent and everything feels to be chaotic. um, there is poor task execution, there are missed deadlines, there is increase, stress. Some journal that you can actually write in 2 hours, you are finding it difficult even after 4 hours to complete that journal. um, you are you're you know um, feeling that, you cannot focus well on the task that is in front of you. uh, there is, no clarity in what really matters. There is like 100 decisions in front of you, 100, tens of subjects to be learned. So there is so much that, that you feel burdened with, right? But trust me, it's a feeling. My experience is that, this is a life skill. It, like, over encompasses the, um, the professional skill, as we say, of time management. But as you can see, it is a downward spiral if you cannot manage it well. Whereas if you start paying attention to certain aspects of time management, if you start completing certain tasks, however small they are, on time, you will see that this same cycle turns into a virtuous loop, right? A positive loop. And you start seeing that you are able to get things done. All right. Okay, so what we'll do here is that I want each of you to, use your laptops or your mobile phones or a pen and paper and write down, make a list of all the things that are on your mind that you need to do, right? In other words, what is your to-do list? And this could be, this doesn't like have to be, what are you going to do today, but what I'm talking about, a list where it's a to-do list for your daily tasks, your weekly, monthly, or even longer term, right? You have certain plan for, um, for next year, that you want to achieve a certain goal for next year, but you need, back of your mind that you got to act now, right? So think about, all those lists where there are tasks that you have to do are on your mind, and list them out, right? So let's say, why don't you write down um, maybe 5 or 10 things that you do on a daily basis. Some are must have or have to do things, some are you want to do, right? They don't have to be unnecessarily have to do things. So let's take maybe 1 or 2 minutes and you know write down all these lists, right? I'm emphasizing that you write this down, and there is a reason why I'm saying that you need to note it down somewhere. It could be digitally or it could be on a pen and paper, right? So please take a minute and then we'll discuss. By the way, if any of you brave guys, and girls want to um, put this on your chat message, we'll collect some of this and then we'll look at maybe a longer list, which is a collective list of all of us, right? So if you have daily tasks on mind, or weekly, monthly, long term, put them out in your chat, and then we'll talk about them, right? All right. So I believe, everybody has their lists. Some of you may have shared it here, but from the past conversations with students and with young professionals, here is kind of, I would say, my list, right, from my early days of uh, being an employee in the corporate world, right? So here is what comes to my mind, right? If I go back 25-30 years, what was my list looking like? um, what I have to do on a month over month basis or on a timely basis is pay my fees, pay my bills, to attend my lectures, work on certain college projects, attending webinars and other talks, fireside chat sessions, um, washing clothes, cooking or ordering food, doing some volleyball practice, understanding and studying of data structures, learning C plus plus language, apply for a student discount, and so on. So these are some of the things which come to mind when I which things are which I have to do. And then some things which I want to do is, I there's like certain books that somebody has recommended. I want to read those books. I want to learn a music instrument. There is this bank account pending for a long time, have not opened. By the way, this is 30 years back. When I used to go to college, I did not have a bank account. I got one, I think, towards the end of my engineering. um, Learn financial management. Somebody had told me that you could be a good manager if you can write down what your home budget looks like, right? And to do that, learn some financial management terms, techniques, anecdotes, whatever, right? um, Call someone, had on mind to call that relative who had been trying to reach out, but I couldn't reach back. So want to do, but feel that don't have a lot of time, right? So as a student or a would-be professional out of college, these are several things that come to mind. And I'm pretty sure that that if we add up all our list and deduplicate them, we will land up at least 40 different items. And some are must have, some are must do, but doesn't need to be done today. Some are very important, some are unimportant. um, some are needed for your daily work, some are aspirational, and so on, right? So this kind of is the state of mind, right? It's like hundreds of things in our lists. Is our list complete? Well, we don't know whether it is really complete or not. um, how do you know that you have not forgotten anything? We can't say, right? I don't know, maybe I'm missing something. um, how will your list stay up to date? Never thought about it. How am I going to keep my list up to date? And by the way, these are the first two or three things that I mentioned are the reasons why you need to note this down, right? Don't work of your memory. Okay. But coming to that question, how do I keep my list up to date? I'll maybe need to do it somewhere. But maybe on my phone, or on paper, right? What should I do first? I don't know. We need to prioritize probably. So yes, first thing that comes to your mind is we need to prioritize this. Otherwise, it will become, this chaos is not going to go away, right? Um, and then how do you know even that you're doing time management and multitasking well? There are some ways of knowing it. And that's something which we'll talk about in way more detail as we move further. So we better come up with some method to do this, right? We better put some method to this madness, as they say. um, Else, as you kind of move further in your in your corporate career, or even in your life, for example, this list is going to continue growing, right? And this is eventually going to become unmanageable. And we have seen that once you get into that loop of trying to control things which are out of your out of bounds, it goes into that negative spiral, right? So we need to use some industry best practices to tame this beast early. And the industry has some recommended best practices to get better at time management and then eventually kill it, right? um, Eventually be so good at it that you become that person who gets things done, right? And that's, remember, that's our quest, that's our goal. Because again, I'll probably keep repeating this multiple times, the industry wants people who gets things done, right? And you want to be that person, you don't want to miss that bus, you want to be that person who gets things done. How are you going to do it? One way of doing it is good time management, right? So that's kind of why we are here on this topic and talking about time management. Now, so that we understand this a little better in some hands-on exercises, I'm just going to talk about a case study, and you may have seen this earlier. I'll, at least in my lecture series, I'll continue using this same case study over and over, so that you don't have to like learn a new case each time you talk to me, right? So this is Kasi, right? Kasi means space or speed, right? In Swahili language. As you guys know, Swahili is spoken in Kenya and that part of the world. So Kasi means speed, and we have named our electric vehicle Kasi, right? It has been in operation for 4 years. It has a revenue of 100 crores. Number of customers, close to 10,000, but we are selling this product in India only. Why are customers buying it? Because it has a good range, it has good speed, it has a certain weight carrying capacity. What are the new asks from customers, right? So the new asks are things like they need a colored dashboard on the bike. They need Google Maps integration. Today they think that that's the one of the big piece missing. They want to have a connect button for a music app. They want to have a battery which charges in less than 2 hours. And then the current customers are complaining about certain things also, right? For example, there is an app which connects to the bike, and they don't get notifications on time. Let's say my battery has reached a 10% low, and if I don't get that notification on time, I run into some trouble, right? I have to go somewhere, and that time I realize I don't have enough juice in the battery, right? I don't want to be in that situation. The vehicle feels very heavy to handle is one other complaint, so we have to think about this, how to solve this problem. And then there is starting problems in the season, monsoon season, right? Rainy season, this vehicle has some starting problems. So just keep that back of the mind while we are learning time management. As we go further, we may use this information in some places, right? All right. So then, so far, we have learned quite a bit about what happens if you don't do time management well, and why is it so important, right? But what is it, right? I mean, from a experience perspective, we don't want like a bookish definition of what time management is. But here is where I felt that this is probably the best definition I would use to summarize, right? So conscious control of the amount of time spent on various activities. So one, that it is a conscious control. You know what you're doing, you are guided by your own conscious, you are guided by your own plan, and you are in control of the time, right? You are in control of how much time to be spent on what activity, right? Once you get that equation right, you have gotten time management right. And we'll talk very detailed about what do you do to get each of these things right, right? uh, what is the upside? It results in reducing all the downside that we talked, right? So we'll not go talk about it one more time. But there are several things, right? Several techniques. You could call them nuggets of wisdom. You could call them rules, paradigms that we'll learn over the next several minutes. I have picked 8 right now. I have picked 8, um, which I'll talk in a minute. But before I go there, I want to make sure that everybody is on board, that planning, scheduling, doing it the right way, spending time, the right amount of time in top priority activities, all of this leads to productivity, right? Productivity gives you even more time. So something which takes used to take a longer time yesterday takes much less time today, because now you have used some time management techniques. You are able to do that job, plus you are able to spare some more time for another job, right? That's the position that we want to get in. So let's see how what the industry best practices can help us there, right? So these are the 8 techniques, right? Or you could call them rules or paradigms. All this is fun, and my recommendation will be to adopt as many as you can. This is not like a um, you know a rule set that you will be able to start doing from tomorrow, but pay attention to maybe two or three each day, and consciously try to figure out whether you're following that, you're doing it the right way, like the industry wants you to, or the industry best practice tells you to, and practice this diligently and build a habit out of it, right? So let's look at the first one: urgent versus important, right? This is called basically a Eisenhower matrix. And think about a 2 by 2 kind of a matrix. On the y axis you have low importance, high importance. On the x axis you have low urgency, high urgency, right? So what how do you look at each task that you're doing, right? um, you have to look at it from this lens, right? um, is it urgent and important? Is it something that you have to do now and it is very important to do? Then you drop everything and do it, right? That's the simple rule, that if you don't pay this electricity bill today, your electricity is going to get cut, right? You have no option but to drop everything first, go pay the bill, right? Let's look at another one. Let's look at, you have a goal of learning Python and get to uh, intermediate level of proficiency in Python, let's say. Okay, that's your goal. Is it important? Yes, it is important. Is it something that you drop everything right now and learn Python until you get proficiency? No, you're not going to get it that way, right? So learning Python, I would put it in the bucket of important but not urgent, which means that you got to schedule this task, and you have to have a cadence to this, right? This is not something which you drop everything, learn Python for 25 hours, and on the other side of that 25 hours you emerge like a proficient person, right? It doesn't happen that way. So what you need to do for these kind of tasks is schedule these, right? Then there are third kind of tasks which are not important but they are urgent, right? So um, there is a meeting, right, that your team needs to represent to understand what, let's say, what your, whoever is running the meeting is wants to convey. But you don't need to be there, right? You need to send a representative, or you can be there, you can be that representative from your team. But if you don't need to be there, yet the meeting is only going to happen today, it is an urgent but not important task, right? So send somebody else to that meeting. A classic example that I take is um, you know like house help, right? I would say that cleaning or mopping the floor is a task which is urgent, meaning it has to be done daily, otherwise your floor is going to get dirty. But is it important for you to do, or can you delegate it to somebody else to do, right? Can you pay for that service, or delegate it to another person so that you save that 1 hour to do some other things which are more productive to you, right? Or how much of a value are you going to get by mopping the floor yourself? Minuscule, maybe the exercise that that it will give your body is definitely the upside. But are you learning something new in that? No. Put it in the not important task, but it has to be done daily, so it is in the urgent task. Delegate it, right? And then the fourth bucket is not important and not urgent kind of tasks, right? So watching some reels, watching for entertainment, watching a TV serial, right? Is it really important and urgent that you drop other things to do it? If not, then just get rid of these tasks from your bucket, right? um, you know, those tasks which are not important and not urgent, where you get the feeling that, oh man, you know, you wasted time, it was unnecessary to spend those 2 hours in that activity. It's okay, you know, it's your learning process, you know that you wasted that time. Move on from that, but the next time make sure that, you know, you put those tasks in the right category and then treat them or deal with them the right way, right? So this is called the Eisenhower matrix. Each task can be put in this metric, and the action for each task is also defined uh, based on where it sits. Okay. All right. The next is relative prioritization, right? So remember this, Kasi. I would point you to, let's say, the number 5 and number 6 there. What the customers want is colored dashboard, Google Map integration, battery charging, then the EV app notification is not working, starting problems in monsoon, blah, 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 right? So let's see how we can use that here. So, first of all, you know what is relative prioritization. It is, you have, let's say, you know, 5 different lists. There is a personal task list, there is a family task list that you have to do certain things, there is a college task list, there is a friends task list, there is, you know, let's say, you know, 5 other tasks lists that you have, and each one has these categories of task lists, right? Within each category, you can do prioritization. You can start pushing those things which are urgent and important up the chain, and getting rid of those things which are not important and not urgent, just delete them from your list, right? That is how you get prioritized lists. But this is priority within the list. Now what you can do is you can do prioritization within list, right? So which basically what will you happen is, if you have 4 lists, there will be 4 number 1s at the top of every list, right? But which one do you do first? Then you do prioritization between those number 1s in each list, right? And it will give you one list where there is a top of the top, and everything has to be forced fitted, forced ranked from 1 to n. There are no two things on number 1. There is only one thing which is there sitting on number 1, right? Number 1 thing to do. So our vehicle needs feature prioritization. So there is app notification, right? Google Map integration. There is a colored dashboard that our customers want. On another list, you know, you have launching of Malaysia. Um, on the third list, you have improving the range of the bike, right? From 127 kilometers to, let's say, 150 kilometers or 170 kilometers. Um, Malaysia is the top priority in new countries list, and the range improvement is top priority in the performance list, right? Which is relatively higher. Let's say we come up with a way, and there are several models of doing relative prioritization. So we won't get into details of how to do relative prioritization. That is also something which we'll learn in another lecture. But let's assume that we assign some points, right? That this is the effort taken to launch our product, you know, our electric vehicle in Malaysia, versus that is the effort um, to improve the performance of the bike. This is the money that it will be consumed, this is the time that it will consume, and so on. So with all this, you know, how many customers will you, new customers will you get here versus how many will you get there, you can apply this into a scientific formula and come up with a number that between this and this, Malaysia wins, right? Which means Malaysia launch wins. And thus, between all these lists, we have prioritized Malaysia, right? Um, so do this exercise, you know, think about your tomorrow's tasks, right? What are my top 6 for tomorrow, and what is the top of the top 6. Okay, do it until it is complete and then move to the next one. So that's one technique, right, of relative prioritization at a individual level. Look at, before you go to bed every day, you know look at your list, think about what is on top of your list for tomorrow, or rather what are the top 6 things on your list for tomorrow, and then which is the one thing which is top of the top in your list, right? Next day morning, go after what is at the top of your list, complete it, and then move on to the next, right? That's basically the industry best practice. And I'll talk about how all these practices come together. They are like very complementary to each other, right? So the more of these you adopt, the more productive and efficient you are going to get. So it's like, there is a project which is 30% due tomorrow, worth 30% due tomorrow, versus an assignment which is worth 5% due next week, right? How do you score one or the other, and so on, right? So that's relative prioritization. All right, then we come to a technique called as a Pomodoro technique. You guys must have heard it. If not, Google it. You'll be fascinated at what this technique is and how effective it is, right? So this is basically a Japanese technique for efficiency and productivity. They studied human behavior. They studied how much of attention span people have to do focused work, and then how much of a break do they need after spending that level of attention span, right? So what they found out was that for every 25 minutes of time you spend deep focusing on a task, you spend 5 minutes break after that. In that break, what do? You basically move away from the task. So if you are working on a laptop, right, if you're writing some code, or you're writing a project thesis, if you have like 20 emails to be sent out and you're writing all those emails, without distraction for 25 minutes, go deep into that task, switch off all other electronic devices around you, find a quiet room somewhere and deeply focus on that task. In 25 minutes or after 25 minutes, stop, move away, walk around for a bit, think about something else, go drink some water, take a short walk, come back, and then continue with the task for the next 25 minutes and repeat it until this task is complete. This kind of habit helps build tremendous amount of focus and productivity. So what you will find is that those 25, 25, 25, let's say you took 75 minutes to actually complete the task with 2 or 3 5-minute breaks in between. So let's assume you spend 85, 90 minutes, 1.5 hours to complete a task, which otherwise without following this kind of technique you would have taken 4, 5, 6 hours, because there is so much of distraction happening, and our mind is susceptible to all these distractions, right? So this technique helps you focus deeply, and you produce kind of the best quality, right? Finally, that is important because delivering higher quality in lesser amount of time is a part of getting things done, right? um, so there is, by the way, an app called Tomato Timer, where you can set the timer and then start working. And students who want to get into that habit, they could use their phone, phones, what do you say, the countdown timer, or you could use this app, whichever way you like to do. But try that the next time you do. The important thing is to get away from any other distraction. What I have done in the past is even put my cell phone on airplane mode, and take my, if I'm writing, let's say, an email or coding or whatever, right, get off the internet or get off all other notifications, and then deeply focus on one task, one only, for 25 minutes, and try and complete it, right? All right. So that's the Pomodoro technique. Then what we have is time block, right? So this is another, I would say, very important technique to remember. So many times, I've found that people say, "Oh, I don't have time," "अरे time ही नहीं है." So many times, people say this, and the reason why they are saying this, they're not lying, they're not wrong. They have a feeling that they don't have time because they have not done good time blocking, right? So what is time blocking? It is basically compartmentalization, or slicing your day or your week, whichever way you want to look at it, right? But I would say don't look at it for more than a weekly time period, right? How do you want to slice your time? um, you can't push all your sleep to Saturday and Sunday and be awake on 5 days a week. Can't do that. So sleep is something which you need every day, right? So 8 hours for sleep out of the 24 hours is gone, right? Then you need to meet, your friends, chat with your family, like do some chores at home, run some errands for your parents or siblings and all that. That's your social life, including watching reels on Instagram, or reading up WhatsApp messages, all of that. 4 hours, right, max. Then you need time to eat, sit down and eat. Again, this is something where, while you are eating, don't try to do anything else. Just when you are eating, you eat, right? And let's assume that in the entire day you spend 2 hours eating, right? Various meals that you take, including your tea and coffee. Let's say 2 hours total in a day, right? And that leaves you with maybe 7-8 hours of college plus labs. So you have to do, attend lectures, do your lab work and all of that. Maybe an hour for exercise, and 2 hours for learning a new skill. You want to learn a musical instrument, you want to learn, swimming, you want to learn um, data structures, you want to learn Python, whatever, right? Whatever you want to learn is new skill building, let's say, and 2 hours for that. Now you could change the slices per what you feel comfortable. This is like slicing a day in, the 24 hours of a day in this. I know that it might change from day to day, that, oh, I didn't find time to do this today, I will try to do that tomorrow, and so on. But at least, over a week's time, right? It's like, typically what this the wearable devices, right? The step counters, the things that you wear on your wrist, and they count your steps. Oh, I have to complete 8,000 and 10,000 steps every day. People have these goals. But then don't sweat if you can't complete those 8,000 within a day, but try to catch up on some other day also, right? So within a week's time, if you are completing the 60,000 steps that you had planned, that's fine. Sometimes it might drop to 7,000 a day, sometimes it might go to 12,000 a day, and so on. But as long as you are catching up to your weekly target, that's okay. And that same principle is applied here. You block your time for certain activities throughout the day, but don't sweat if you are not able to do, like, 2 hours full on a new skill. You spend too much time on college today, you couldn't exercise. That's okay. You can rebalance it, but don't go beyond a week to rebalance, right? Don't push it to next week and next week and next week. So what really happens, right, by doing this kind of time blocking? It prevents decision fatigue. The biggest benefit is that you're you know you're never in a position where, oh, what do I do next, right? You can always look at your time block and figure that, hey, I've spent one time in exercising, now I think I should stop. What do I do next? Have I spent time in new skill? No. Let's spend time learning some new, right? So what should I do next is will never be a a problem, problematic question to answer for you, right? um, reduce Reduces multitasking. So it's not like, you are eating while you are doing your college activity, and then while you are talking to your friend also at the same time, and then, on one side you have this YouTube video open where somebody is teaching you data structures. So that is not going to be productive, right, for you. um, Try and minimize those tasks to one at a time, right? Your focus on one thing at a time. Force prioritization, we have already talked about it. It helps you force prioritize. So if for example, um, if for example you find that you have three modules of new skill to be learned, let's say uh, uh, three guitar lessons, right, which will take you to certain proficiency of guitar learning, and that falls in your new skill. You want to learn the guitar, don't do it at the expense of something else. That, oh, you know what, I want to learn this guitar, I'm not going to exercise this week, I would rather learn guitar, or I'm not going to do my college activity. So don't do one thing at the expense of the other. Try to force these things into that bucket, that I will spend this time doing this, right? I will spend 7 hours doing college work and lab work. If that kind of spills over into something else, I will not compromise on other things. And by the way, these are not very hard lines between the two blocks. It is up to you to flexibly change it a little bit, but it helps you block time for focused and uninterrupted tasks, right? So that's kind of a big benefit of time blocking. This, by the way, is again, a technique which will help you tremendously as you climb up the ladders in the corporate world, or you start running your own business. You will get to a point where 24 hours is not enough, and that not enough to do all the activities that are urgent, important, maybe not important, urgent. So all those activities which are not important and not urgent anyway, you have deleted, right? So everything is to be done, but whether it should be done today or not, that's something which, you will use this technique, or you will make use of this technique very efficiently if you are able to do this well. Now, there is also a great technique called a 2-minute rule, right? This is good if you want to reply to quick messages, quick emails. You want to pay a bill online, takes 2 minutes. Just do it, get it out of the way, right? So if a task, whether don't when it is a 2-minute task, don't think about whether it is urgent, important, not urgent, not important, and all that. Just think about getting it done and getting it out of your way. So let me think about okay, so putting clothes in your washing machine and starting it, right, versus writing a project thesis which is going to take 5 hours and you have to submit it tomorrow, right? Now obviously, the more important task, right, is the project thesis, because you have to submit it tomorrow, so you have to spend those 5 hours today. The urgent but not so important task is the washing machine. So in terms of relative prioritization, maybe the project thesis goes up. But with this rule, what this rule is telling you is that get the washing machine task out of the way. Put your clothes in the washing machine, switch it on, it takes 2 minutes, and then go to your project thesis, right? So I'm these are just examples, but you could use your own judgment call on what takes 2 minutes to do. See, what happens back of your mind is that it helps build a habit of not procrastinating. And I believe everybody understands what is procrastination. Is basically pushing things forward to a later date what otherwise you could do today, right? um, it helps you build that habit not to push things forward to a later date. And once you start like doing or delivering these tasks in smaller bits, you get a feeling of satisfaction, that much more confidence in yourself that you can deliver something, and it puts you in that positive spin, right? So this is another very small technique. It's a micro technique, but quite helpful, right? All right. Then we have what is called as the Pareto principle, right? Don't need to kind of tell you guys what this is. You must have heard it right from your school days. But in terms of what you do and what value it brings back to you, you can look at that. Look at your task list from that lens of Pareto principle, right? So if you look at top 20%, if you take, let's say, your monthly list of your monthly to-do list, right? The top 20% are the tasks which are going to bring 80% of the results, right? That's a given. That is how it has been, right? um, there is other science to explain, why that is true, but Pareto principle has been around and has proven itself time and again, right? So let's for a moment accept that 20% of the tasks are going to bring 80% of results. It's like in the corporate world, the way they look at customers is that who are my top 20 customers, because those top 20 customers are paying or bringing 80% of your revenue. And that's true in most of the companies that you look at, right? There are these top heavyweight customers which are actually bringing 80% of your revenue, and those are the customers that you pay attention to the most, right? So applying this principle to our EV, right? If my top paying customers, right, my repeat customers or my top retailers are telling me, somebody who is selling 10,000 of these vehicles, is telling me that you need Google Maps, I will build Google Maps, right? Otherwise, I won't. So one of the things is one way of looking at this is applying this principle to your task list. Complete the top 20% of your task. My experience says that rest of the task kind of take care of themselves, right? You will soon start realizing that the things that are towards the bottom of your list become lesser and lesser important, become more and more unimportant, because they are giving you lesser and lesser value back, right? So follow this principle. Then there is what is called as a 135 kind of a rule, right? um, this is also very interesting, right? And it helps college students especially, or even early employees, balance their academic work with personal and other social activities, social commitments that they have, right? So remember we were talking about, look at, before you go to bed, every day, think about the six things that you're going to do tomorrow. Okay, let's say here all of these put together they add to nine things, right? That's okay. You're talking about, let's say, the um, top n things that you're going to do tomorrow. Try to categorize that list in one big task that you're going to get out of the door, meaning you're going to complete and deliver, one medium level task, and one small level task. So the big task could be also a broken down task out of a larger project. Let's say you have to um, you know uh, let's say you have to deliver your entire project thesis um, over a month's time, and for that delivery you need to collaborate with three other people. For that you need to assign certain work to each of those guys. What I mean is, you guys need to assign yourself certain parts of the work so that all the parts come together and you are able to deliver it in a month's time. Assigning individual ownerships, individual parts of the bigger work is a big task. get it out of the way first thing tomorrow, right? It's a big task because then that's kind of a starting point of everybody else starting to work on their tasks, right? Then there could be some medium level task. When I say big, medium, and small, it could be from a time consumption perspective or an importance perspective, right? Whichever way. Typically, as you go from big to small, the time taken for these tasks reduces, right? So the big task, for example, is to decide who does what, right? So first is, you call these four people in a room, you discuss, who is going to do what. There is going to be a lot of negotiation back and forth, planning, structuring, all of that, and then you decide, okay, you know what, these are our action items. Takes time because multiple people, a lot of brainstorming, so on. That's a big task, though the action is just a small list that this person does this, right? That's okay. Then the medium level task and small task, like the washing machine task that I talked about, right? That, oh, I have to wash my clothes tomorrow. Yes, put it on your task list, right? Now try to do this in this ratio. So you get one big task out of your way, you get three medium tasks out of your way, and you get five small tasks out of your way, right? This, how does it help? If you ask me, it helps by giving you more and more confidence of completing tasks, right? Remember, we had talked about this. One of the reasons why people feel dejected, depressed, disappointed, is because of the completion rate. So even if it's a small task, you feel good at completing it, right? And this technique, 135 technique, helps you in that, in improving that completion rate. All right. So that's basically the biggest power. And that's again a mental habit, a habit that you have to build over a period of time. Um, Cannot happen in a day. And then there is another technique called as, what you see in this, sorry, I'm pointing the right way, this side. What you see here is a frog boiling in a pan, right? Eat that frog. Have you heard of this term? Let me know in the chat window, if you have heard of this term, eat the frog, right? What this means is, you start your day by working on, the most or the hardest thing to swallow. If the hardest thing is getting these four people in a room and deciding who does what, and you have to do it tomorrow, don't push it towards end of the day. Do it first thing in the morning, right? Because if you get the biggest thing out of your way early in the day, maybe it takes 4 hours, that's okay. But by middle of the day, your biggest task, right, this task number 1 is done. Then the rest of the time is spent on task number 3 and 5. And this is again, this is a guidance. You might say that, my those people are not available that time, and then that's okay. You have to manage it whichever way you find comfortable in those, in context. But the rule set says that do the hardest thing first. There could be several other hard things that you have on your list, which you are going to deliver individually. You don't have external dependency. Get them out of the way the first thing in the morning. And how does this help? It basically builds momentum, right, for rest of the day. So remember that 135. If you get the biggest thing out the first, then the eight small things remaining, the medium and small things remaining, you are able to do them at a much faster pace, right? And again, finally, if you are able to do nine things at the end of the day, you feel very good about yourself on how much you are able to achieve, right? All right. So what do we have here, right? Now that we have learned several of these, like, micro rules, right, or industry best practices, let's look at maybe some tool that might help us do this, right? So remember at the start of this meeting, I told you that, pull out your phone or your laptop or a piece of pen and paper and write this down, right? But there are tools available in the market which will help you do good time management, right? And we will talk about one such tool. It is called Trello, right? um, Remember, Kasi is our vehicle, right? So there, number 6 is all the bugs that need to be fixed. Number 5 is all the new things that the customer is asking, right? And then there are other things on your plate which are not here, which is, oh, you want to get into a new country like Malaysia, and how are you going to do it, and so on, right? So there are so many things as us, right? Let's say all of us work for that electric vehicle company called Kasi, and there are 8 customer bugs to fix. Otherwise, those customers will give us bad reviews. They will leave us. They will not promote us, and so on. There are 3 new countries to launch. We have to do planning for the next year, and there are all these ask, right, new features that the customer is asking. What do we do first, and what logic do we apply to do it first, right? How do we track everything down? How do we make sure that things are not falling through the cracks? So remember, the chaos slide that we saw earlier. One of the big things is that if you do not write this down somewhere and you do not track this diligently, there is high possibility that you lose it from memory. So many times I have found or observed that new employees, or even you know seasoned employees, come back saying that, oh, I forgot, oh, I should have noted this down, oh, I did not put it on my calendar, right? That's the habit of writing things down and tracking it, right? And this tool helps you do that. It helps you capture ideas, and it helps you juggle these balls, right? Keep them in the air. All right. So how does it look? It looks like this. I'm not necessarily promoting Trello as a tool, but it is free. It has all these, as you can see, um, these swim lanes, and the way I've named these is today, this week, done, parking lot, and category one, right? So use it like your big checklist. Everything in your checklist should first go into the parking lot, as you see here, the fourth column. From the parking lot, depending on the priority on what you want to do today, move it to today, or move it to this week. Once the task is done, move it to the done column, right? So this is a very simple tool. Just, I would say, Google Trello demo or something like that on YouTube, or go to their website and watch their video for, like, it's a 5 or 8 minute video on how to use the tool. Very, very simple and intuitive to use. It can give you reminders for yourself. You can use it as a great time management tool, right? It is a great time management and multitasking tool. It is used for many other things in the industry, but to get you started, this could be a great tool. You could use Excel sheets, you could use your calendar, you could use many other ways of doing it. But at least for this session, we'll talk about Trello. So once you start building your today's list, you start adding these cards in it. You see a menu to add the card. That card is nothing but a task, and you have ability to move this up and down, right? So like we said, for tomorrow, what is my number one big task, what are the 3 medium tasks, and what are the 5 small tasks, right? You can keep that list in your today or tomorrow list, and keep working on that. And then you have a this week list, then you have what is done, and so on, right? So this is the tool. So whether it is Trello or any other tool, right, the best way um, to use this is basically writing down every task, every idea, action, Create categories, label these. There are labels available in the tool. You can label them as a priority item or urgent item. You can put deadline dates to it, and you can create checklist below each of these lists also. So it's a very intuitive as well as powerful tool to use. I use it quite a bit to do my own, personal list management as well as my professional list management. The daily discipline that is recommended is start of the day, 10 days, 10 minutes in the morning. Just take a quick glance at this list. Remember, yesterday night you have already thought about this list on what is my top priority. So 10 minutes in the morning, 10 minutes at night to reflect on what has been done and what am I going to do tomorrow. And then about 20 minutes in a week's time to do that relative prioritization, right? Urgent, important, not important, not urgent, all that prioritization you can do at the end of the week. You don't have to do on a daily basis, and get rid of all those items, which you think are no more important, and bring in new items which you think are more important, right? So that's how you need to keep recycling or cycling your list at the end of every week. And we are not going beyond week because like we discussed, right? This is something which you should not, this level of planning you should do on a weekly basis, right? The time period that is suggested is a weekly basis and not beyond. All right. Now what we'll do is over the next maybe the next, I would say 20 minutes, or yeah, about 20 minutes, we'll look at three or four mental models, right? And this is very interesting because some of you are already having these models in mind, just that the industry has given it now names, and you will relate to these models, right? So now that we know that time management is important, what is its upside, we have seen what we need to do. These mental models basically help you form strong and sustainable productivity habits, right? Again, remember, our goal is to build these habits so that you do good time management, so that you can get things done. And getting things done is one of the most desirable kind of skills um, in the industry. All right, so let's look at the first model. All right. um, the model basically is, it's called mere exposure effect. I'll give you kind of 30 seconds to read the slide. Mm, it's maybe self-explanatory for many of you. You can write in the chat window what you think about this. It's called mere exposure effect. Its definition is that familiarity breeds comfort, right? Everybody wants to get comfortable at doing something. They don't want to struggle looking at a list. They don't want to feel the pain or want to be pained at doing something repeatedly. So the model basically says that the more we are exposed to something, the more we tend to like, trust, and accept it. So it's like, look at your daily list, right? Look at your daily Trello or your the spreadsheet that you're using to track your items. um, Even if it feels a struggle at first, over a period of time you will have familiarity. The more familiarity we will have, you will go through that list. Remember we said that spend 10 minutes in the morning and 10 minutes at night. I can guarantee you that 10 minutes reduces to 2 minutes in the morning and 2 minutes at night once you are familiar with your list. That you already know, oh, I know that 8th thing on my list, but I need to make sure I do it tomorrow. You don't have to even think sometimes, right? You have to just follow the list and go forward. So repetition reduces friction. The more you do it, the more you look at your schedules and planners and task lists, the more likely it is that you act on it. Meaning, the more these tasks are in front of your eyes, the more likelihood that you will remember them to act on it, right? And you will not be in the situation of, oh sorry, I forgot, I missed the bus, right? You don't want to miss the bus. You cannot forget. You have a way to not forget, so use those tools and techniques, right? um, Exposure builds emotional comfort. At first using a calendar it may feel awkward, but consistently using it becomes an automatic behavior, and that is something which is again desirable in the industry works on a time clock. Everything has a deadline date and everything needs to be delivered on time with quality. And if you are want to do both these things, then some of these habit building becomes that much more necessary, right? There is even another recommendation, which is place this list somewhere where you can see it. If you have a laptop, put it as a, a background, right? To your laptop. If you have a notice board or your pin board at your home or your hostel room or wherever, um, take a printout of it and pin it there, right? Your weekly list, pin it there, and then use a pen to kind of check the boxes and so on, right? The more it is visible to you, the more likelihood that you will get things done what you see on that list, right? Okay. Then the next thing is power of compounding. Those again, something which we have learnt in school. Compound interest. If you remember, eighth standard or seventh standard, I don't know. What is um, the first year in school that we learn simple interest and compound interest. But people say that improve only 1% every day. But do you know that 1% improvement is improving yourself 37 times by end of the year? So 1% is tremendously big. It's huge, right? Though we say 1%, actually in reality, even if we improve 1% in a week's time, you are still 67% better than you were at the start of the year. Essentially what we are saying is that small consistent efforts grow exponentially over a period of time, just like compound interest, right? You don't need to do like these massive things all at once. It's like, I love the example of running a marathon, right? If you think about running a marathon, you don't start by running the full length on day one, right? What do? You break that whole thing down into smaller things. I need to eat well, I need to sleep well, I need to build my muscle, I need to go to the gym, and then I need to practice some amount of running also. So it's not only running, it's seven other things that you need to do if you want to be a good marathon runner. Now, these seven could be broken down into smaller tasks and keep improving each of these seven things a little bit every day, right? So, if I ran 5 kilometers yesterday, I will run 5.1 kilometers today, or I will run 5.5 kilometers today, right? Small improvements, or, I went, I need certain type of diet, right? How do I get, can I, my habit is, for example, eating 5 meals a day, right? But for a marathon runner, I need to have maybe 3 meals a day, right, with certain nutrition and whatnot. Can I suddenly change my diet? It's probably going to be very it's going to be a struggle. Do small changes is, and it will pay off, right? um, it's like, if you have a term paper to submit, you are told to write a 5,000 word um, you know term paper or a thesis or a essay or whatever, right? um, don't start writing it end to end suddenly and then finding out that, you may complete it, but then the quality may not come. You may have missed certain things and so on, right? So give it a structure. Start thinking about how much am I going to write every day, what are the things that I'm going to cover, what is the research that I need to cover these things, and so on, right? And that's how your final term paper or your final essay or your thesis will come together, and it will be good quality and you will be able to deliver it on time, right? Um, maybe the last example that I can give you is studying, right? We all have heard that, hey, I don't, I'm a last minute person. I only study just before the exam. I do a full nighter and whatnot, right? But trust me, there is a way better way of doing it, which is like 20 minutes a day, right? 10 hours a month. It's way better than cramming everything towards the end. So 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 think about what's the right thing to do, rather than thinking about what everybody else is doing, right? What is the right thing for you to do, and with your personality and your habits, what can you do is more important than following the crowd, right? So that's that on um, power of compounding. Then there is what is called as a 2-day rule, right? Um, so this is, by the way, the second or third last slide. So we'll stop in maybe another 10-15 minutes. So there is what is called as never skip a habit for two consecutive days, right? How it helps in time management is that it's okay. Sometimes you have planned that you are going to run 3 kilometers every day. Today you miss for whatever reason. Today, your college has called you early, on to class, and you have to miss your 3 kilometer run. That's okay, but don't miss it twice in a row, right? I mean, don't consciously miss it twice. If you can't help it, that's another story. But if there is no reason to miss it, don't miss it, right? By skipping 2 days of anything causes one's mind to get into a non-habit kind of a loop, right? The best way to start breaking breaking any habit is not do that for 2 days. So if you have gotten into all these habits that we talked about, right? 135 habit, or a 2-minute rule, or relative prioritization, um, you know, you know, so many things that we learned today, right? Don't give up on those, right? Start inculcating some of it every day, and then make sure that you do it consistently over a period of time, because the consistency is basically the one that gets things done, right? There could be flashes of brilliance here and there, but what I have seen is that those people who are extremely disciplined and consistent are the ones who have been very successful in the industry, and even in their entrepreneurship or their businesses, right? Consistency, discipline, habit, is the key. So if you're tired yesterday, that's okay, no problem, but today, even if it's 10 minutes, do your job, right? Don't skip it. All right, so that's about never skip twice. And then the last one is tribalism, right? So remember, we talked about um, do what is the right thing for you to do, right? Don't just follow the crowd, right? So we naturally, the human tendency is to conform to behavior of the group that we identify with. You are sitting in a friend circle, you want to identify with everybody, you want to blend in, right? You want to fit in. And why? Because you feel respected. You stay consistent with what everybody else in your tribe is thinking, and so on, right? That is all good. But then remember that when you belong to the group that values discipline, you adopt those habits too. When you belong to a group where there is indiscipline, you start fitting in into the indiscipline also, right? So your behavior gets guided by your tribe. So remember that subconsciously your behavior is going to get guided by your tribe. People have a innate instinct to think or behave in a way that prioritize loyalty to their social group above everything else, right? So um, if you think that the Pomodoro technique is the right technique and it works for you, follow it, right? Slowly you will find that the results that it is giving you rub on to rest of your tribe, meaning rest of your social group, and they start following it rather than doing it the other way around, that hey, nobody does it, so I will look silly if I tell everybody that I do it, right? Don't go get into that. I always like to quote that if you are standing at a signal, right? um, and there are several vehicles, the signal is red, right? And you are waiting, you find that there are people who trickle around you. They break the signal and they keep moving. Some people break the signal when it's like this last 7 seconds remaining until it turns green. They start breaking the signal that time. We all know that the right thing to do is wait till the red turns green and then your vehicle should start moving. Do it. Don't feel ashamed that because what happens there is that you feel that, am I the only fool who is waiting for the red to turn green? Don't think of yourself as a fool, because once you start following that, you build that as a habit. That habit goes into your work also, and then looking at you, three other people will start following you the next day, and that three will become nine the next day, and so on, right? That's how you can rub off your good habits onto others and keep away from just fitting into a group, because that gives you the best comfort, right? So getting into some level of discomfort so that you can cause the change is equally important. um, that is the mental model of tribalism. It works both ways, like good habits. If you are as they say, right, you are the average of the five people that are your friends or that you work with. So if you have a good social circle who is helping you boost your habits, or you are getting good habits from them, that's a good circle to be in, right? So that's basically all about time management. There is a great book called Getting Things Done by David Allen. I would highly recommend that you um, read this book, and then go to trello.com. There are lots of online videos which talk about how to use the tool. Start using it tomorrow. This particular presentation will be available online, but there is plenty of material available on the internet as well for time management. I would recommend that, since we have the gist collected in this particular recording, start adopting these 7 or 8 rule sets and the 4 or 5 mental models that you talked about. I'm sure that you'll not be able to adopt everything on day one, but as give yourself maybe 2 or 3 months, and you will get into the habit, and then it will become your second habit. It will become natural, right, to you to follow these, right? So just to summarize, number one, getting things done is highly valued in the industry, and time management um, is a big skill to getting things done. Second, several uh, we learned several industry accepted rules and best practices. Third, we learned a tool called Trello, but you don't have to get limited with Trello. You can use any other tool which helps you there. um, and the fourth is the mental models to develop habits for high productivity, right? So that brings us towards the end of this lecture series on time management, and towards building a professional skill which is called getting things done. I hope you enjoyed it. Do watch this recording or other material online. If you want more help, you can always reach out to us at Satkam. and hope you got to learn something new today. Thank you very much, and you guys have a wonderful. Hi everyone. Thanks for your time. Think we are at the end of the conversation. I'll be here for some more time. If you want few more questions to be answered, I'll I'll stick around for some more time. But then you can always reach out to us. You are a part of several WhatsApp groups. If you're not, and if your friends are not, please ask your TPOs to get you onto these WhatsApp communities. Six Satkam has a community and a group where you are already there. Feel free to interact with us on those groups, and we'll try and answer as many, or at least make an attempt to answer every question that we can. All right. Thank you, everybody. You guys have a wonderful rest of the day and rest of the week. Thanks and bye.